One GitHub repository crossed 160,000 stars in about 90 days, and it did it without being a framework, a library, or a product. It's something stranger than that. It's one engineer's actual .Claude configuration folder, mattpocock, published for anyone to copy. Matt is a well-known TypeScript educator, and this is the setup he genuinely works out of every day. Over the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to walk through every single skill inside it, what each one does when you'd reach for it, and which failure of AI coding it's built to fix. No skipping, all of them. Framing is deliberately blunt. Skills for real engineers, not vibe coding. And that distinction really matters. Vibe coding is what happens when you let an agent sprint ahead on gut feeling. Lots of code, produced fast and often subtly wrong. These skills are the opposite instinct. They're the boring, proven engineering habits, specifications, tests, reviews, and shared language, encoded so an AI agent actually follows them every single time, instead of only when you remember to ask. Everything in this repo exists to fix 4 specific ways that AI agents fail you. First, misalignment. The agent confidently builds the wrong thing because it misread what you actually wanted. Second, verbosity. Without your project's vocabulary, it rambles and re-explains itself, burning tokens as it goes. Third, broken code. With no real feedback loop, bugs sail straight through to you. And fourth, architectural decay. Every change is locally reasonable, but together they slowly rot the codebase into a ball of mud. Hold those 4 in your head, because every skill we're about to see is aimed squarely at one or more of them. Chapter 1, the engineering skills. These are the ones that shape how code actually gets specified, built, and reviewed. There are 16 of them. 9 you invoke yourself by name when you want them, and 7 the agent reaches for automatically as part of doing the work well. We'll take them in order, the ones you drive yourself first, then the ones the agent reaches for on its own, so you can see how they naturally hand off to each other.
First, the simplest one, Ask Matt. It's a router, the front door to the entire toolkit. Here's the problem it solves. Once you've installed 20-odd skills, the hardest part isn't using them, it's remembering which one fits the moment. You're staring at a vague ticket, you freeze, and you fall back to just winging it. So instead you type Ask Matt, describe what you're trying to do in plain English, and it points you at the right workflow, maybe grill with docs to align first, maybe straight to Wayfinder because the work is huge. Small skill, but it's the piece that turns an intimidating wall of commands into something you can navigate on day one. In practice, it earns its keep on day one, and after long breaks, when the toolkit feels like a wall of unfamiliar commands. You describe the situation in a sentence, it suggests the right starting move, and you're off instead of quietly defaulting back to old habits and skipping the skills entirely, which is how most tools end up unused. Grill with docs is the skill most people fall in love with first. Before you write a single line of code, it interviews you, and I mean it really interrogates the problem branch by branch, then writes what it learns into a context.md file and a set of architecture decision records right in your repo. Say you're adding billing to an app. Instead of the agent silently guessing what a subscription or an invoice means in your world, it asks, you answer, and now that vocabulary is written down and shared. Every session after that is shorter and sharper because you're both speaking the same language. As domain-driven design puts it, with a ubiquitous language, the conversations and the code all come from one model. This is the skill that kills misalignment at the root. In practice, the real magic is that context file. Once it exists, you stop re-explaining your product every single session, which directly attacks the verbosity problem because the agent already knows your nouns. And because the interview surfaces disagreements early, you catch the building the wrong thing mistakes while there's still a cheap conversation, not an expensive pull request. Triage moves issues through a state machine of roles and statuses. Most backlogs are really just a junk drawer, 100 half-formed tickets nobody's looked at in weeks. Triage gives every issue a defined place, who owns it, what state it's in, whether it's even ready to be worked. So before you start building, the work is sorted and categorized instead of piled up. It's the unglamorous discipline that keeps a project's queue from turning into archaeological layers of good intentions. In practice, you reach for it the moment your issue list has quietly grown past what you can hold in your head. It won't write a line of code, but turning an intimidating pile into clearly staged. Owned items is very often the exact thing standing between you and actually starting the work. Improved Codebase Architecture scans your whole codebase for design problems, hands you an HTML report of what it found, and then walks you through fixing the ones you choose. The trick is cadence. You run it every few days, not once a year in a panic. Maybe it flags a module that's quietly become a god object or duplicated logic drifting out of sync. You pick which to tackle and it guides the refactor. This is Kent Beck's principle made operational: invest in the design of the system every single day, and it's the main defense against a codebase slowly rotting into a ball of mud. The anti-pattern it prevents is the Big Bang refactor, the one where you finally can't stand the mess, block out a whole week, and rewrite half the app while everything else stops. Little and often beats that every time. A short scan every few days keeps entropy from ever compounding to crisis level. Setup runs once per repository, and it's the first thing you do. It wires the whole suite into your specific world, which issue tracker you use, GitHub, linear, or just plain local text files, the triage labels you care about, and where your documentation should live. It sounds mundane, but this is what lets every other skill behave like it belongs to your project instead of fighting your conventions. Skip it, and you'll be correcting the agent constantly. Do it, and the rest just fits. The mistake people make is skipping it, then wondering why the agent keeps filing issues in the wrong place or inventing labels you don't use. 2 minutes here saves you correcting the same thing 20 times later. It's the least glamorous, highest leverage 2 minutes in the whole suite. To spec is beautifully narrow. You've already had the conversation, maybe a long back and forth where you and the agent figured out exactly what to build. To spec takes that conversation and synthesizes it into a real, published specification on your tracker. No new interview, no relitigating decisions. It just captures what you already agreed and makes it official and actionable. It's the fastest possible path from we talked about it to it's written down, so the decision doesn't evaporate the moment you close the tab. In practice, reach for it the instant a good discussion is about to scroll out of view. The decisions you just made together are worth far more written down than half remembered next week, and this is the zero-friction way to capture them before they evaporate. To tickets takes a plan or a spec and breaks it into tracer bullet tickets, small end-to-end slices, each with its blocking edges explicitly declared. So instead of one giant do the feature ticket, you get an ordered, dependency-aware work list. This must land before that. These two can go in parallel. It outputs as local text or as native links in your tracker. The payoff is that the agent can execute in the right sequence, and you can actually see the shape of the work before a single line is written. The failure it prevents is the giant, vague ticket that the agent quietly interprets 3 different ways across 3 sessions. Small, ordered, dependency-aware slices make each piece unambiguous and independently verifiable. You always know exactly what done looks like for the very next step. Implement is the workhorse of the whole suite. You point it at a spec or a set of tickets and it builds, but not recklessly. It drives test-driven development at the seams you agreed on, and it runs a full code review before it ever commits anything. So the code that lands has already been tested and critiqued. This is the skill that turns all that upfront alignment and planning into actual shipped work, with the guardrails switched on the entire time rather than bolted on afterward. In practice, this is where all that upfront alignment finally pays off. Because the spec and the shared language already exist, implement rarely goes off the rails, and its built-in test and review gates mean broken code gets caught before it ever reaches you. It's the one skill that ties specify, build, and review into a single motion. Wayfinder is for the work that's simply too big for one session, a migration, a gnarly refactor, a feature where you don't even know the right approach yet. Instead of pretending it can one-shot the whole thing, Wayfinder lays the work out as investigation tickets on your tracker, then resolves them one at a time until the path forward becomes clear. It's planning as navigation. You don't need the entire map up front, you just need to see the next turn. And because it lives on your tracker, you can pause and resume across days without losing the thread. The anti-pattern here is asking an agent to one-shot a huge migration and watching it confidently produce a plausible, well-formatted, completely wrong megadiff. Wayfinder simply refuses that. It insists on learning the terrain one ticket at a time, so the plan is grounded in what it actually discovered, not what it guessed before it had looked. Prototype builds throwaway code to answer a design question, and the word throwaway is the whole point. Maybe you're unsure how some state machine should behave, so it spins up a tiny runnable terminal app you can poke at. Or you can't decide between 3 layouts, so it generates all 3 behind one root and lets you flip between them. You learn the answer cheaply without committing to the code, and then you delete it on purpose. It's a way to buy certainty before you spend real implementation effort on the wrong design. In practice, it's a way to be wrong cheaply and safely. 20 minutes on a throwaway to learn the right shape saves you days of carefully building the wrong thing. The only discipline it demands is that you actually throw it away afterward. It answered a question. It was never meant to be production. Diagnosing bugs replaces guessing with a disciplined loop. Reproduce the bug reliably, minimize it down to the smallest failing case, form a hypothesis, instrument the code to test that hypothesis, fix it, and then add a regression test so it can never silently come back. That sequence matters most on the bugs that make you want to change random lines and pray, the Heisenberg bugs and the performance regressions. It's the difference between fixing the symptom you happen to notice and actually understanding why the thing broke. The anti-pattern it kills is change a line and pray, poking at code hoping the bug just goes away, then declaring victory the moment the symptom vanishes. The loop forces you to genuinely reproduce and understand the cause, and the regression test at the end makes the fix permanent instead of a coincidence that quietly regresses next month. Research is the antidote to an agent confidently making things up. When there's a real technical question, how does this API actually behave? What's the correct way to configure this? Research investigates it against high-trust primary sources instead of the model's fuzzy memory and writes cited findings straight into your repo as markdown. And it runs as a background agent, so you keep working while it goes off and reads the actual documentation. What you get back isn't a vibe, it's an answer with receipts you can check. In practice, use it the moment you catch yourself trusting the model on a specific factual detail, an API signature, a config flag, a version difference. It goes and reads the real source, cites it in your repo, and runs in the background so it costs you no momentum. The output is checkable, which is exactly what you want before betting a design on it. TDD red-green refactor is the discipline underneath almost everything else here. Write a failing test, make it pass with the simplest thing that works, then clean it up one vertical slice at a time. The reason it matters so much for AI agents is feedback. A tight test loop keeps the agent honest, catching drift the instant it happens instead of 10 files later. As the pragmatic programmer says, always take small, deliberate steps. The rate of feedback is your speed limit. When implement builds something, this is the engine turning under the hood. In practice, the reason it matters so much with agents is that they'll cheerfully generate 100 lines that look correct and simply aren't. A failing test first turns should work into does work, one slice at a time. It's the tightest feedback loop you can hand the agent, and tight loops are precisely what keep it from drifting off course. Domain modeling is grill with docs but running continuously as the project grows. It actively keeps your language honest. It challenges the terminology you and the agent are using against the glossary, stress tests it with edge cases, wait, is a cancelled order still in order, and updates context.md and your decision records inline as the answers change. Language drifts silently over a long project, and drifted language is where misunderstandings breed. This skill is the maintenance that keeps the shared model from quietly going stale. The failure it prevents is slow semantic drift, where a word like user quietly starts meaning 3 different things in 3 corners of the codebase, and nobody notices until a bug traces straight back to the confusion. Continuously sharpening the model keeps the language coherent, and coherent language is what keeps the code coherent too. Code-based design is a shared discipline and vocabulary for designing deep modules. The idea, straight from a philosophy of software design, is that the best modules are deep. They pack a lot of functionality behind a small, simple interface placed at a clean seam. A shallow module, lots of surface, little value, leaks complexity everywhere it touches. So when you're building something new or refactoring, this skill pushes toward interfaces that are easy to use and implementations that hide the mess. It's how you keep complexity contained instead of smeared across the whole system. In practice, the tell of a shallow module is that using it is almost as complicated as just writing the thing yourself. Deep modules invert that simple to use, complex inside, complexity contained. Applied consistently, this is what stops a codebase from slowly accumulating the 1,000 small leaks that eventually make every single change feel scary. Code review is smarter than a single pass. It runs 2 reviewers in parallel as separate subagents, each with one job. One reviews against your coding standards and a baseline of classic code smells, the Fowler catalog of things that quietly rot code. The other checks something completely different. Does this diff faithfully implement the spec it claims to? Quality and correctness are genuinely different questions, and answering them separately means neither gets glossed over. It all happens before the commit, so problems are caught while they're still cheap to fix. In practice, splitting the review is exactly what makes it thorough. A single reviewer trying to hold both coding standards and spec fidelity in mind at once tends to do neither really well. 2 focus subagents each do one job properly, and because it runs before the commit, the cost of any finding is a quick edit, not a painful revert.
Chapter 2, the productivity skills. These are less about code itself and more about thinking clearly and handing work off cleanly. There are 5 of them, and they're the connective tissue that keeps the engineering skills from happening in a vacuum. You'll notice a theme here. Several of these are the very same instincts as the engineering skills: interviewing, capturing context, questioning hard, just pointed at thinking and collaboration instead of code.
Grill Me is relentless interviewing for the decisions that aren't about code. Should we even build this? Which of these three directions? It keeps asking branch by branch until every fork in the decision tree is actually resolved. No, it depends. No, we'll figure that out later. It's the same instinct as Grill with Docs, pointed at strategy and product thinking instead of a domain model. And it's the cheapest possible insurance against committing to a direction that everyone quietly had doubts about but nobody voiced. In practice, it's the meeting you really should have had before you started building anything. Every it depends you force to a decision now is an expensive reversal you avoid later. It's mildly uncomfortable in the moment and remarkably cheap in hindsight, which is exactly why people skip it, and exactly why they regret skipping it. Handoff solves a problem every long task eventually hits, context evaporating between sessions. It compacts your entire conversation, the decisions, the dead ends, the current state, into a clean handoff document so another agent or future you next week can pick the work up without missing a beat. Instead of rederiving everything you already worked out, the next session starts warm. It's the antidote to that sinking feeling of opening yesterday's task and having no idea where you left off. The failure it prevents is context collapse, that moment a session ends and all the hard-won understanding just evaporates. A good handoff document means the next agent, or you yourself on Monday morning, restarts warm and oriented instead of rederiving the entire mental model from cold. Teach turns the agent into a tutor that actually remembers. It guides your learning across multiple sessions, using the current directory as a stateful workspace, so it tracks what you've covered, what you struggled with, and what's next instead of starting from zero every conversation. Say you're learning a new framework over a week, Teach builds on each session rather than repeating the basics. It's less answer this one question, more take me from here to competent over time. In practice, it's the difference between asking scattered one-off questions and following an actual curriculum. Because it remembers across sessions, it builds on what you learned yesterday rather than re-explaining it, which is how you genuinely go from beginner to competent instead of looping forever through disconnected answers. Writing great skills is the reference you reach for when you start authoring your own. Because the moment you've used this suite for a while, you'll want to encode your own workflows the same way. This skill lays out the vocabulary and the principles that make a skill predictable, how to structure it, how to name things, what makes an agent follow it reliably. It's how the toolkit stays consistent as it grows. Your custom skills end up behaving like the ones Matt shipped instead of surprising you at the worst moment. In practice, you'll want this the first time one of your own custom skills behaves unpredictably. The principles here, clear vocabulary, tight scope, a predictable structure, are what make a skill reliable, so your extensions feel like a natural part of the suite rather than a wildcard that surprises you at the worst possible time. And grilling is the quiet engine underneath two of the skills we've already met. It's the reusable interview loop that powers both Grill Me and Grill with Docs, the relentless branch-by-branch questioning factored out into one place so any skill can call it whenever it needs to resolve ambiguity. You almost never invoke it directly, it's the shared muscle the others flex. And it's a nice illustration of the code-based design idea in action, one deep, well-made capability reused everywhere instead of copy-pasted. It's a small but telling piece of design. Rather than copy-pasting the interview logic into every skill that happens to need it, they built it once deeply and share it everywhere. That's the code-based design philosophy, eating its own dog food. And it's precisely why the questioning feels equally sharp no matter which skill happens to invoke it.
So that's all of them, but the real trick is that none of these work alone. They compose. Grill with Docs sets the shared language. To spec and to tickets shape the work into ordered slices. Implement builds it, with TDD and code review guarding the gates the whole way. Domain modeling keeps the language honest as you go. Improved codebase architecture keeps the structure from rotting. And handoff carries the whole thing cleanly to the next session. It isn't magic, and it isn't a framework. It's a set of engineering habits, chained together, and encoded so an agent follows them every time. And it is genuinely one command to install. npx skills, add mattpocock /skills. The link is in the description. Now go build like a real engineer.